Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Routledge. It's the Taylor and Francis group of publishers. They're experts in legal titles, and this one is actually a revision book, and one I think is really first class. It's called Key Facts, Key Cases, Company Law. We'll look at the book in a minute. It's been written by Ridley and Chris Shepherd, and it's also available as an ebook, as are many of these books today. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I have written a review, and we've given the title of our review this: The Simplest, Most Effective Way to Absorb and Retain the Essentials of Company Law for Exams. That's what it is. Now, I want to show you the book first. Paperback. It's not a heavy book at all. There's the front, the side, and then the back. Key facts, key cases. You've got lots of interesting little icons, I suppose. I'm not sure what logos, whatever you might call them. A wig, brief, various scales of justice, and so on. But really, it's just to try to give you some visual interpretation of it. The back is quite important. It mentions the ebook at the back there. It also mentions the series editors, Jackie Martin and Chris Turner, who are involved in these subjects, and it also sets out what the book actually contains. We'll look at it anyway in a bit more detail. There is a shortish index at the back there, and then what I'll do is I'll just come to the front straight away, because that's the actual front page there. Then you've got a whole series of key facts, key cases covered. They're all there. And this is the one about company law, so you can see that. But they cover all the main areas which are needed certainly for the LLB. And you can obviously visit the Routledge website. It's routledge.com/law. Then you've got the contents, and you can see the various chapter headings there. Anybody involved, it starts off with all the usual information about how to create a company. Then you get into share capital, of course, maintenance, borrowing, directors' duties, and then it ends with chapter 12, company failure and liquidation. So it follows the normal pattern for any book involved in this particular area. And you notice that there is paragraph numbering at the sides, which makes it quite easy to find the stuff. Do read the preface, which sets out what this book is about and how it's actually designed to assist you. And what you've got is these little things here. That's a wig, key judgment, quotes for key comment, exclamation mark, key problem, and key link, which is that arrow. Then you've got the table of cases. Then you get a nice diagram at the beginning, which is very helpful. If you think about revision, this sort of thing is actually very helpful for revision, because you start off with the actual diagram. And I used to do that with making my notes and honing them down just to one page. Then you have, this is the bit here, which is the checklist. It starts off with the key case checklist, with the case law and the relative cases, relevant cases rather, so you know which ones, and trying to remembering them is actually a problem. But you then have some picked out specifically, and then you've got key links, key facts, key law, and so forth, the main cases that affect a particular area. And then it sort of runs all the way through. Then you go on, and for instance the next chapter is on corporate personality, and so on all the way through. I've been very impressed with this. It's very good. It's a little bit like the old law cards they had, but this is I think more of a new development, and it certainly assists in the revision process on the basis that you've probably already got some knowledge of the subject matter. Even if you haven't, it's relatively straightforward if you understand what you're doing. But I would stress that I think this is more for revision more than anything else. Now, this is what we say about the series and about this particular book. The Key Facts, Key Cases series of books are first-class exam crammers, if we're allowed to use that term these days. And this edition of Company Law, written by the excellent team of Ridley and Chris Shepherd, is one of the best revision texts we've seen in recent years. Remember, it's part of the main series which Jackie Martin and Chris Turner edit overall. As with all the Routledge textbooks, this particular title is probably the most comprehensive on the market as an introduction to the way in which company law operates in England and Wales for those new to this developing subject area. It's sometimes referred to as corporate governance. The two authors adopt a clear and simple approach with legal vocabulary which is carefully clarified throughout the book. I think one of the main reasons why we consider the Routledge series of legal textbooks to be of outstanding value, both in terms of the cost and the content they have, is the way in which these authors, and they're all legal experts across the field, explain substantive legal issues in such a readable fashion. I think the diagrams also help. So for both tutors and students, a decision on which textbook or revision book to use is always going to be difficult because there's a lot on the market, but it's clear to us from the feedback we get from learners that the Routledge texts are one of the leaders in the legal field. Many of their texts also have excellent links, of course, to websites, and they're sometimes marked as the companion websites. This one doesn't have that, but the companion websites are an additional boon, again, for revision, so look out for that. Obviously, they are much assistance to the hard-pressed learner and a great additional tool for them. And it's quite possible that I suspect there's going to be more of the companion website part with video links and various other things, all as part of the learning process for learning outcomes. And we would say that the formats used by Routledge for their textbooks are very much of a mainstream formula for legal texts today, which eases the student into methods of legal reasoning for those just beginning their legal studies and all undergraduates. They certainly helped us with our preparation all those years ago, so do ensure you look very carefully at the chapters and the titles they have on offer. And I would say that obviously they have been maintaining a high standard for some decades now. That this is the Routledge text. They've gone through different names. It was Glasshouse at one stage and so on. But they are very helpful as friends to the law student doing revision. The authors make good use, as I've said, of diagrams, tables and regular checklists which appear throughout the end of each chapter. And they act really, in my view, as summaries to make the subject come alive in the most engaging style for modern learning outcomes. There has been this approach where you just read the stuff. I do think it's quite useful to look at that and write some of it down, because if you do, that'll help you with your handwriting, because you've got to get used to that for the exam hall. But in addition, you'll be able to hone down the stuff into one page of very quick notes. And it's amazing how retentive the old memory really is. The key definitions and the many key cases that are listed, together with the way in which the learning objectives are achieved in each of the 12 chapters, are of particular help, I think, to those new to the subject. Although, as I've said, it may be a little bit confusing for some because of the words used and so forth, but that's the same for any substantive law area, frankly. But we consider this title remains an ideal first introduction to company law when it comes to the revision process for undergraduates and also those preparing for other types of academic or professional examination, and anyone actually interested in this growing area of substantive law in the 21st century, dominated as it now is, of course, by the Companies Act 2006. The law stated by the authors as at the 28th of July 2014. Let me just remind you again of how it's done. I'm going to open it up in the middle. Remedies. Maintenance of capital. There we go. That's the heavy stuff. You've got a lot of statutory information to know about. You've got the general Trevor and Whitworth is a start off there, and then the various the role of the courts, which is pretty not over keen to get too heavily involved, dividends and so forth. Then you have again a hard area, actually, dividends. You've got to understand, and that's where the problems are quite often, the problem cases. You've got the law as stated, then you've got the judgment, key facts, law and so forth, and it runs through quite logically. And it saves you getting to a case book, I mean Seeley's case book or whatever it is. Obviously they are useful because you've got the judgments, but this is really very much to try and remind you what you will need to know for the exams. Then there's another checklist there about directors. So you have everything. I think these books are really first class. They're described as an essential series for anyone studying law. I think they are. And certainly for any of the students I have, I would be recommending this to them. Really, because obviously it's important to be able to talk about the subject. And if you're a distance learner, you don't have that facility. But this book is good for both distance learning and for the classroom, if I can use that word in this day and age. Thank you to all concerned. These books are really great. It makes studying a lot easier than when I started. Thank you very much indeed to all concerned. Bye-bye.